Don McCullin's image of a Turkish woman mourning the death of her husband during the Cyprus Civil War was a huge influence for me. This image was taken in 1964 that shows a very sad woman. A woman, you see the scars of war all over her face. And wherever you look in the image, you just see stories. Endless stories. Sad stories. And that's simply what you can see and feel in an image by Don McCullin.
Hello.
Sir Don.
Welcome to...
Beautiful to see you again. How are you?
It's very nice to see you. You're incredibly well dressed.
Thank you.
Photographers are not known for their... please come in into this room here.
It's a great honor.
No, not at all. Come in, come in.
Thank you.
So, have you ever been to the English countryside before?
It's my first trip. I couldn't stop my eyes just looking all around.
Well...
And the drive from the chapel was amazing. This landscape.
Well, I've been living here for 35 years. Sometimes out here in the garden, I wake up in the morning, like this morning was misty, but sometimes I wake up and I see deer in the garden.
Wow.
And when you see a deer in the early morning mist, it's very beautiful.
Yeah. Do you know you were the reason I became a photojournalist?
Me?
Yes, sir.
No.
Yes, sir. I mean, your photographs opened my eyes. I mean, you were telling stories, untold stories, and many of these stories the world didn't want to see. So I wanted to do this. I wanted to make change.
Well, I'm glad you've come along because I'm giving up because of my age now, because I'm 82 years of age now, and so my body is refusing to obey. You know, my legs hurt, my hands have got arthritis because I've spent 60 years in the darkroom in cold water, and, you know, and it's very strange, isn't it? A little piece of equipment with a piece of glass in the front can change so many different things that people feel you can only do it with the gun.
Yeah.
And it's not true. The camera is mightier than the gun, I think.
I always get asked by the people that I photograph, is your picture gonna help us? You know, and my answer is always clear. I'm not sure. But if I don't document this moment, it never happened. So at least I can raise your voice. For me, the picture is a voice of the subject that I photograph.
You've touched on something very important here, because when you're photographing the victims, basically you're not helping them. You're investing in their suffering to maybe stop other people.
Suffering.
I entered photography as a young man, and I thought the great thing about photography, because I wasn't very intelligent as a young man, I left school at 15, so I thought, because I didn't have much of an education, or none at all, that I can do photography, hide behind the lens, and it won't be political. And do you know something? Almost everything I've done in my life concerning, you know, situations has been political. So that easy life of photography, which I thought was going to allow me to be like a horse with blinkers, to go through life not having any responsibilities, I think you'll understand what I'm saying. It's nothing but responsibility.
I feel I'm lucky. I always feel I'm lucky wherever I come back from any place, because I'm not the one who passed through what these people or these victims passed through. But I always, whenever I look at the pictures and I see where it ended and the number of people who have seen it and the comments, I say, at least I managed to carry the voices and put it out there.
I'm so privileged, as you've obviously seen in yourself, that to be happy in your life's work. So it's a funny happiness. It's balanced with your personal happiness, and yet you're standing on the foundation of other people's unhappiness, and you're sharing that space of their tragedy.
You always get questions, and the best way is to be honest. I try my best to be honest with the people. I never promise anything. I try to help as much as I can, because it's my duty as a human being. But at the end of the day, there is a limit to what you can do.
The most important question that people ask me, they say, do you help anybody? And then I ask them to break down the question. In which way do you expect me to help somebody? I'm not a trained doctor. I'm not a trained first aid person. Maybe I should have been. But what is my duty when I'm standing in front of a tragic situation with a camera? Many years ago, I walked into a camp in Biafra during the war in 1969, 68, 70, when I was there. I walked into these so-called hospitals. They were not hospitals. They were just kind of flooded schools. And there were 800 dying children in these places. And I went in there and they think, this man's from an aid agency. He's bringing us salvation in the form of food or something to eat. They were talking about children from babies to boys of 10 and 12, literally without any flesh on them, within days of dying. What did they see? They see a white man with 2 Nikon cameras.
See the help.
So, you know, my conscience is very dark. And what you said earlier about honesty, I've always played the honest card in my life. There's no point in lying, because if you make one lie, you have to cover it up with another.
As long as I'm the only help available, I have a duty to do what a human being could do. But then there is a limit to what I can do.
Well, there is certainly when you're looking at somebody who's got a gaping wound in their body, bleeding and possibly dying. I mean, there's nothing you can physically do other than draw the attention to a doctor to bring them, you know, and I've done all that in my life. I've given people food, and I've found a doctor for people. I remember once in the same war in Biafra, I found a 16-year-old boy. I even remember his name. It was Stephen. He was mentally handicapped, and he was covered in the most appalling sores. And so I went and found an army doctor, and I brought him back, and he knew him. And he said, that is Stephen. He's mad. I said, that's got nothing to do with it. And he went away, the doctor, laughing. And Stephen was somebody people made fun of. And then you say, what are you then? Are you a photographer? Are you a human being? Yeah. But you should be both anyway.
Exactly. I remember this image of yours. I think it was in Cyprus, of the old woman who was with the sticks walking, and a soldier approached to help, and you carried.
Yes.
And that picture, I always come back to that picture in my heart and mind. Whenever there is a chance that I can help, amazing. I don't stop.
I was with a whole load of journalists and television people, and it was in a small Turkish village. The Greeks had been attacking the Turks, which was a big mistake. You know, I try not to cross the political line, but I do, of course, in my mind. I think that's not right. This should be this. That's not right. Then all these people came under a hail of gunfire, and this old lady was coming, and I forgot my position as photographer. I suddenly thought, this is not right, you know, this woman's going to get killed. And I said to my friend, hold my camera. Yeah. And I ran and got her. And I picked her up. I was young. I was only about 24. I was strong. Yeah. And it was like carrying a child's doll. She weighed nothing, and I ran. And I didn't do it for anybody, only that old lady. I didn't want to see this old lady being murdered because someone didn't respond And looking back on it, of course, I feel proud, really, because it was the right thing to do.
At the end of the day, this feeling what matters. When you come back and you remember these moments, you feel proud of yourself.
Well, there's a room upstairs, it's called my bedroom. And I'm alone. I spent many years alone in this house. I've been married a few times, but I've spent 16, 17 years living alone in this house. I did a book and it was called Sleeping with Ghosts. And I'm still sleeping with them. And you will join this ghost sleeping club because your memory will make your life difficult to sleep at night.
They say time is a healer, or replace the bad memory with a good one, but that memory never goes away. It always lives inside.
And look at your age, you're half my age. So you've joined a very uncomfortable club. You know, it's free of charge until the night time comes.
Yeah.
And you will pay the bill.
That's the moment where all
for the rest of your life, you will be affected. I feel slightly uncomfortable that I've elevated my life in the eyes of the people in the world of photography and communication and media, but at the same time, it was at other people's expense. So I don't feel comfortable where I am today.
I think we try to look happy, but deep inside we're not.
You chose to do this.
Yeah.
So who can you blame? Only yourself. You're a mixture of happiness and sorrow. So it doesn't matter if someone gave you all the money in the world, all the privilege in the world, but it's not going to bring you happiness.
No, I have this question often, actually. Like, why I did not choose something else, but something inside me say, no, this is what I meant to do.
I grew up in a very poor district in London, nothing like where we are today. And I grew up with boys who eventually became gangsters. And we didn't want to learn at school. I couldn't write and read when I left school properly. And I went into the Air Force and I failed the test to become a photographer because I couldn't read the paper, theory paper. So there was no academia in me. I'm not an academic person. But visually, I have in my mind tens of thousands of images. And I'm sure you have the same ability to remember the work of others.
I always say that's the only thing I'm good at.
Do you think there's a possibility that if you become damaged and you can't accommodate a kind of balance and understanding, do you think maybe photography, you may let it go away from you and you may choose something else?
No. I tried. I lost a good friend of mine and I spent time away from my camera. But I couldn't let go.
Okay. Where have you been in areas of conflict that...
We were the same year in Syria, actually, in 2012.
Were you there when I was there? Did I see you there?
We did not meet. What I did is I saw, like most of the photographers, they went to the front line, and that wasn't my interest at all. And I focused on the people, like the internally displaced people. But I was aware you're a few steps around.
I did very badly there, to be honest. I was only there for a week. It was not easy to photograph there. There was the fear of being kidnapped. And, you know, people don't realize that pressing the button is the simplest part of our operation. But the enormous emotional struggle to get from A to B is sometimes the most dangerous. And
it's changing. I believe in a period before, we used to be, like, respected more. When I used to say I'm a photographer, people would, you know, respect you. Nowadays, you're a target. You're a moving target, just like anybody else.
If you reverse things and put yourself in the place of the victim, you could look upon people like us as vultures and hyenas. We're there for the carcass. You know, I'm under no doubt about how I can sometimes be viewed, but I'm the gentlest of souls when I'm doing my work to show respect to the injured. I was in the Sabra Shatila camp in 1980, I think it was 82, and the camp was being shelled by the Israelis, and I was in a mental part of the hospital, and one nurse, Palestinian nurse, stayed behind, who was to me an angel. She was like she was a wonderful woman, and she was in control of dozens and dozens of children who were starving hungry. It was about 90 degrees of heat. They were dying of thirst. They had covered in flies, covered in their own filth. And I thought, what has this got to do with photography? This is not photography. This is not why I'm here. You know, I'm looking at the biggest kind of insult to humanity. So what can my little camera... And I felt defeated that day. And then all the television guys came in and they were saying, this is prime time television in America. And they were pushing and shoving and treading on the children in their enthusiasm. And I thought, you're doing this the wrong way. You are behaving so badly. So we are not sometimes what people think we are. We are sometimes awful. I walk my own journey in my life. I walk a very fine line, and I represent myself. I do not want to be like these hyenas that day in that hospital.
No. That's why we miss a lot of moments sometimes. Because I think before taking my pictures, is it my place to be there or not?
One of the things we haven't brought up in this conversation is that what do we get out of it other than our conscience regarding trying to show other people's tragedies and suffering and pain? What do we get out of it? We have to be honest. It is exciting going to war.
Yes.
Do not make any mistake about going to war is exciting. That if you're in a battle and you survive at the end of the day, there's something drumming goes on in your chest. You feel, God, I've got through that. How did I do that? You know, I'm alive, and, you know, I've got these pictures, you know, but I'm happy.
That I'm alive.
What am I happy about here, you know? So, you know, the hypocrisy is like a huge ton of bricks on your back. That's why I said earlier, you're never really going to be a happy man. There's not a great thing to say to you.
No turning back. No.
I mean, I do snatch moments of happiness in my life. You know, I'm entitled to, and so are you. But at the same time, because we chose to do this work, we don't really have the right to complain. And being happy in a war or our moments of joy, it's not right. Is there anger in you?
Always. It's deep right there, the anger. Yeah, it never goes, even if you try your best.
The anger comes into me knowing that when wars happen, the people who suffer the most are not the soldiers, it's always the civilians and always the women and children.
Yeah.
So there's where my anger starts to bubble to the surface.
Yeah, but the most important part for me is I keep myself honest, the ethics. I'm a human being. Mm-hmm. I'm not, at the end of the day, a robber.
Did you say robber?
Yeah.
It's interesting, really, because you seem to have a very parallel mind like me. I always felt that I was robbing people who didn't need to be robbed when they were already down, you know. So it's good to have these thoughts because it means you're cleansing your conscience, really. There are people I really don't like in photography, but I like the fact that they've got the visual kind of eyes. I've seen some great pictures taken by people I don't always think are great human beings.
So, Don, soon we will be in Sharjah at the Xposure Photography Festival, and you're going to have an exhibition there.
The idea is to try and enlighten people that, because I have this terrible reputation as being a war photographer, which I really hate, I'm going to do something totally different. I'm quite happy with the title of photographer. I don't need to be called a war photographer, because I'm not. I photograph all kinds of things. I do landscape, I do still life photography in an old shed out the back of my house, and, you know, I haven't put myself into a category. I'm constantly discovering, you know, new kind of sides in me, new thoughts in me. There's a set of books here in my library. So they were published in 1886, and they come up to 1926. I've only got some of them, of course. I bought them in a small English village, not 100 miles from here, and I was a young photographer, and they became my university. Every night I would read them. Come and have a look.
Yeah.
I just want to show you. These are the books I bought. I paid £10 for them, but that was like 40 years ago. I mean, that's extraordinary as a portrait. But, you see, that's rather beautiful. This might be done by... Yes. This man, his name's F.J. Mortimer. He became the editor of this magazine in 1940. He was killed on a London bus when a German rocket fell, and he did nothing but sea photograph. He did photographs of the sea. I love the work of a man called Joseph Sudek, who lived in Czechoslovakia, in Prague, actually. And Sudek had one arm, which he lost in the war, Austro-Hungarian War, and he somehow loaded the camera with his teeth and the other arm. I mean, when you love something, nothing will stand in your way. And photography is like that. You will run across, or I will run across a battlefield that most people say don't do it. We do it because we've fallen in love with photography, and we're totally a prisoner to that kind of life we've chosen.
It's our life.
You know, as much as you admire the work of other people, my world is closing in on me now. I'm looking at the end of my life, you know. So I'm looking at my own work, and I'm trying to put it in order so that when I'm, you know, when I finally die, short of using, you know, the right words, you know, I leave my work in order. But I've got 60,000 negatives in this house and 20,000 color transferences. But I know that it wouldn't be worthwhile if I didn't make some kind of logical order out of what I've been doing for the last 60 years. Sometimes there is a bit of humor in me. This is a woman being arrested during, in the early 60s, because she was, you see, she's brought her bag. She knows she's going to be arrested.
She's
so
ready.
She's brought the overnight nightgown.
She's prepared. That's a lovely
But she's very funny. These are all 35mm. I mean, when you think the negative's only that big. So, but anyway.
The Nikon that saved your life is here.
I'll show it to you if you like.
I'd love to. That's a famous Nikon camera.
It's still got the mod on it from the rice field, but these were great cameras.
Yeah,
you know, they did fantastic. All the great photojournalism were done on the Nikon. It was a great camera. The bullet ricocheted off there and gouged its way up there, and you can see that it's almost left the impression of the round, you know, as it must have hit the side and gone up. It used to work, this camera. Ouch, it doesn't anymore.
No more.
It used to work for a while, but anyway, so let's go outside. Go ahead.
Thank you.
I love this tree because it looks like a tree from a famous English painter called Gainsborough, and he would have people sitting there with the lovely clothes and things. But now the autumn has come now. So
this is an amazing view. Just like doors of heavens open and jump.
Well, you can see it's not difficult to fall in love with the landscape. And this is our field there on the other side. It goes right the way down to the road. And there's a river down there.
Beautiful.
A beautiful river. And there are fish in it. I used to fish, but I don't do it now. I had this thirst of an ambition that I wanted to be the best kind of photojournalist. I used to say war, but it made me sound really a moron, really. I wanted to be the best at what I, could be in the newspaper world. I wanted all the eyes of attention on me. I wanted them to think, I can do it, I'm going to deliver. And I used to do these things, but it didn't take long for the wars to get to me and make me feel shabby, make me feel, is this right, what I'm doing? Is it going to do any good? I mean, if you want the truth, whatever I did in the past, I think today has been a total waste of time, because every year there's another terrible war. So I went through 50, 60 years of that. And then when I got fired from the Sunday Times, I suddenly found myself in a midlife crisis here in this house. And I thought, how can I occupy my time? And I started doing still life in my old shed in the back. And then I started seeing the landscape. It was talking to me. It was saying to me, why do you think you're redundant when you could be joining us and photographing? And I started, but the trouble is, when I photographed this, the stains of war were still attached to my memory and so I was printing my pictures darker and darker, and someone said to me, your landscapes look like war scenes. I've been to Iraq a couple of years ago, and I've been to Aleppo last year, and photography gives me strength and it gives me direction. A man of my age should be sitting up in that house now, looking out through the window, waiting to die. I'm not. I'm still looking for a challenge. And the countryside, in a way, it's not a challenge because it's so beautiful. It's like someone giving me a glass of wine.
It's an inspiration, actually.
Yeah, that's a better word, inspiration. Now, this cat here is the biggest killer in the area. Every day I come down, there is a dead mouse on my carpet. There's something kind of naturally kind of killing about these animals. Could you live here?
I would spend my whole life sitting on a chair right here and observe. I'm a photographer. I love this. I appreciate the beauty,
What I've done is I've increased the quality of my life. You're me now. When I was, when I was 31, I was at my best age. You're 40 now. Do you think it's all going to be worth it at the end of the day?
I have no doubt.
You have no doubt?
Yeah. I think what we do is so important, even if we don't see it now, but in the future. I mean, look at your work. It's been taught right now to generations, and it will go for other generations. Let's look at it from this level, educational level. This is the biggest achievement. You spread awareness. You help people realize things. Maybe we didn't actually help the victims or the subject, but we did in another way.
I have to tell you now, if someone said to me, you've got to do something else, the only job I can think of that I would be qualified would be a road sweeper. I don't have another choice. Be careful that you don't get to a place where you don't have another choice. I don't have another choice because of my age. I don't care, because what I've done in my life, even though I have doubts about the outcome, I still believe. I tried, and it was important to make others aware, but I didn't win any battles. And my photography, I published a lot of books. I've had a lot of nice things said about my work. I'm not totally satisfied, really, that what I've been doing for the last 60 years is 100%, I've been rewarded for the wrong reasons. You know, I said once, if I ever had to see a psychiatrist to help me over the pain of my memories and the shocking things, I would ask him to pay me for the visit. Yeah. Frankly speaking, this countryside has healed me.